Hi, everybody. My name is Donna Gorton. Welcome to my show, Willows Bend. Tonight, we are going to explore if there be giants and the evidence, ancient evidence in support of that. So we are going to give it a few minutes for everybody to find their way in. I didn't get the chance to announce I'm going to give 10 minutes to everybody. But, you know, by now, I've been doing the show for 3 years. People ought to kind of know by now. And apparently I got to turn down my notifications yet again. There we go. Sorry about that. So do watch the chat in my show because that's where most of my members go to watch it. And the most people who are watching the live are there. So if you see me looking off to the side, that's what I'm doing. So I'm just simply right now getting chat opened and called up so that I can say hi to everybody, let people know I'm here and I see them. There I am. Okay. Hi, guys. Hi. I see you guys. Come on, cell phone. Respond. That'd be great. There we go. Okay. You guys are already waiting for me. That's awesome. So, yeah, tonight we're going to be doing If There Be Giants. And hi, Sandy and Gina. Well, stranger Gina. She has resurfaced yet again. So, as always, we tend to do the sage blessing and protection before we get started. So why don't we get going with that first and get that done first, and then we'll dive in as usual. So I thought for sure I was going to be running late tonight. Poor Jake has had a difficult day today. For those who don't know, it's my Dalmatian who's elderly and kind of in his end of life time frame. He's been doing really good the last 3 days, but he's kind of backslid again today. So needless to say, he's been very difficult today and quite the handful. And I thought for sure I was going to run late, but thankfully we pulled it off. We're here and we're ready to go. So hi, everybody in chat. Yeah, it is what it is, Gina. You know, he's 15 and he's got issues and it's that time. So, come on. Yeah, it's been actually really nice the last 3 days before today where all the battles weren't happening and the screaming matches to be heard and so forth, and totally not responding to me today at all. So it's been difficult to say the least, but anyway. So at this stage, I cast a circle of protection around anyone who is watching the show or listening live or globally. May this circle of protection keep you safe from any harm, ill will, or ill intent from anyone or anything. Hey, Stace, may this protection follow you outside of the show into your personal and private lives, and may you carry it with you. Sandy, you're funny. And may it keep you safe outside of the show as well. So I will it, so mote it be. And let me sage down my stones. And the dog needs sage. See, that's the problem. He hasn't been saged enough. Have some more sage, Jake, and maybe after the show you'll be better. Okay, that's done. We've got even though he's not the show mascot, but it's the theme of the day to Woos Fabra, meditating sloth, to remind me to relax and not take it seriously. I do, Tanya. Oh, yay. Thank you, sis. She loves me. I'm lucky. I am. I'm blessed in many ways. By all of you, actually, who have my back and are family to me in my group. And hopefully you had to order sage. Yes, sage is always good to have on hand, Mary. It definitely is. Hi, Tammy. We did have somebody, I accepted a member request for, I didn't have a chance to really get their name set in my head before, right before coming in, but hopefully they'll be able to watch the show. If not, the replay will be here. So, yeah, Sandy, you guys are family. You guys know that. Love you too. So, if there be giants and the ancient evidence that supports them, right? Oh, love you too. Love you too. Love you all. So, we got pictures tonight too, which is also cool. Guy or girl, what, Mary? What are you asking guy or girl about? My sloth? That's the only thing I could think that you'd be asking that about. Hey, Nancy. Florida water is used oftentimes in witchcraft for in protection spells and cleansing energy spells, kind of like to get things out of your home environment type of thing. So it's a common ingredient in a lot of spell work. It's not a necessary one, like one doesn't have to have it, but yeah. So, if there be giants. The person you said was new going to watch. Oh, Mary, it's I believe a woman. I cannot remember her name though, because I literally accepted it as I was coming in tonight. So like right before I came looking for the feed for the group's feed for the show. So I didn't have time to really commit their name to memory, but I believe it was a woman. But it was like really, really last minute accept and then jump in to find the feed. Yes, thank you to everyone who shares out. I appreciate it. Don't share anywhere that's going to get you in trouble, of course, but you know, where you can, your personal page, yada, yada. So I have a quote here by an A.D. Aliwat from a book called In Limbo. Thank you, Nancy. It says, quote, only a giant could stand tall enough to bend the ear of a god. Something to think about. So the dictionary defines a giant as an imaginary or mythical being of human form, but superhuman size, a legendary human-like being of great stature and strength, a living being of great size, something something unusually large or powerful. And there is no official height set for one to be classified as a giant. However, most agree kind of on the 7 foot plus tall range. So, 2 meters, 2.5 meters and above for those who are on a metric system. Meters are about the thing I do best with, the metric system. I am from the US and we don't use it here. So, but I got that part down. Anyway, so people question whether or not giants existed. And in like the scientific field and archaeological field, their side of things, they kind of look at it as any evidence has been mostly circumstantial. And it's kind of just, well, maybe and wishy-washy about it. However, there have been newspapers that have reported on skeletal findings globally. Like it's big news, especially in smaller town newspapers where things can be kind of slow. They jump on that stuff like white on rice to publish all these stories, especially over the last 100 years about finds where a skeleton has been happened upon. Those things got published like mad. So where would all these newspapers be wrong if there were skeletal remains discovered of someone of giant stature who, they found a skeleton, it was 7+ feet tall, and in whatever context it was found in, as far as location wise globally. This is not just like in the United States, although there have been skeletons who of giant stature found in the United States. Excuse me. Hi, Shannon. Thank you, Sandy, for sharing. But globally, and almost every culture has their own legends pertaining to giants in their mythology. And again, every mythology has its oh my goodness, I got the hiccups, sorry. Every mythology has their origins in a grain of truth that started it all, right? So where did that come from? If, so I'm sure someone didn't just wake up one day and be like, oh, let's start a myth about giants and run with it. So it had to come from somewhere. Ben got to go help mom. Okay, Tanya, well, we'll be here for a little while. hopefully she's okay. Even though she doesn't know who we are, give her Willow's Ben's love. Hi, Ted. Okay. So, now these stories about giants date back to time memorial, and certainly well beyond when written records existed on these things. You know, and we've already talked about in past shows that we've done about the idea that these ancient civilizations existed long before written records were created. Now, we had a really big show on Sumeria and how they were the first ones to really come up with a writing system, and that, you know, what their system or their civilization gave to the rest of the world in technological advances, etc. But that before that, there were glad you're excited, Ted. You know, that before written records were around, that there had to be ancient civilizations, you know, around the world, because we find the remnants of their civilizations still present in today's world. Now, granted, they're in ruins, but, you know, they're still there and standing well beyond when one would have thought they should have been. So more and more science is kind of leading to the idea that they were that there was like a universal flood event that happened globally, and geological records are bearing this out as being truth. So that you know, and almost every single culture has their own flood story to it. So it's kind of looked at as what existed pre-flood days and what existed post-flood days, right? And so it's thought that a lot of these cultures were around well before, sorry, let's knock my tablet down. The first, you know, the flood happened, and that they were advanced civilizations and things that, you know, we don't have nowadays, or the things have changed to such a degree, or whether our DNA has been tampered with at all or not, or whatever, that these things, you know, were in existence back then. And just because there isn't always in-depth archaeological records to back it up doesn't mean that they didn't exist, right? Didn't they say that giants were the offspring of angels? Well, Ted, those were considered the Nephilim. So the biblical story is that the Nephilim were, so that, you know, after the whole big fight happened, allegedly between God and Satan and the angels who disagreed with God regarding the sanctity of human life, that those that didn't agree, you know, fell to earth, and that they found human women beautiful and took them up as wives, i.e. mated with them, and that the offspring of angels and human couplings were called the Nephilim and were thought to be giants. Now, that's only one interpretation of giants, because again, non-Christian people around the globe who have no idea, you know, especially back before the Bible came about, had no belief system in angels or otherwise, had stories of giants in their history. So, and anyway, we're going to get into all of that tonight and see what's out there in the form of evidence and what has been put out there. And then I'm going to let you guys, you know, in the end, we always discuss, you know, I want you to think for yourselves and do critical thinking to see, you know, what do you guys think about all this stuff? So, well, the Amazon women were thought to be, you know, mythological as well, you know, like the whole Wonder Woman story thing, and that, you know, that some thought they were of giant stature, some not. So, I will say before we get into any evidence that the dates jump around a lot, and I apologize for that. They are really actually presented within the research in a jumping around fashion. So short of having a whole extra night to work on this stuff, I'm presenting it as I encountered it, which is, you know, it just jumps around. It's the way it does. So there's no real rhyme or reason for it. Some of the stories are bigger than others are. And what I have for tonight for evidence backing this stuff up. However, some are just mentions that, you know, a skeleton was found here at such and such a date. So, but they do jump around in just their presentation. So my apologies, it's not me. It's just the way it's out there online, and it would take a whole extra big chunk of time for me to put it in chronological order. So bear with it, but you'll get the idea, you know. You guys roll with it. So we have, first off, we have the Giant of Castelnau. In 1890, a femur, a humerus, and a tibia, twice the size of modern humans, were found in France by a George Vacher de la Pouge at a Bronze Age cemetery. Now, keeping in mind, I don't speak French, so bear with any mispronunciations on my part. I do the best I can. I was a Spanish girl in school, so Spanish accent I can still do and decipher, but my daughter was into French. But anyway, you get the idea. So let me get my pictures opened here. All the way back. Okay. So here is, come on, open up. Here are what was found with those bones I just mentioned with the humerus, which is, your funny bone, the tibia, and the femur, which is the thigh bone, that were found that were twice the size as humans. Now, unfortunately, they didn't photograph anything for size comparison, but those are the bones that were found anyway. So I wish that they had put something next to them for comparison, or at least, normal, quote unquote, normal size bones to show the difference, but it's what it is. Hey, Miss Karen. So, let's see. So the remains were thought to date back to the Neolithic period, which was 9,000 BCE, which is before current era. Meaning if you go to our year zero and keep going backwards, it would be 9,000 years before our year zero, where we started counting time forward to 2021. It would be before that. And just for those who don't know the time system. And archaeologically speaking, they always put it as the oldest date first, moving forward in time. So from 9,000 BCE to 1900 BCE is when these remains were thought to date back to. And they were examined by multiple scientists and anatomists and found to be human. And the height of the body was thought to be 11 foot 6 inches tall. And only a few years later, skulls and other bones of giants were reportedly found in a prehistoric cemetery at Montpellier, France. Now, these measured to be at 10 to 15 feet tall. The bones were sent to Paris for further study, but there's no other subsequent reports on them after that. Yes, we got giants, Karen. The next one we have is the Teka, which is in Nevada's Loveland Cave. And actually, Tanya, who had left Sargisian, she had sent me a story about this, which I'd already heard of it prior to that, but there were some details in it before we even decided to have giants on the table. Cindy asks, when did they start putting sharing in Spanish? Well, it's always been possible, but I would say probably with the advent of social media, probably. Most of us would go up to their kneecaps, if that. Yeah, if that, Karen. Yeah, probably social with the advent of social media, Sandy, because there would be no other reason to have that as a context. Because distributor the contenido would be share the content, basically, is what it says. So I would say, what other content would you be sharing? And why do you have it in Spanish? Would be my next question. No, above out names when we share something. Yeah, I don't know where you would be seeing it in Spanish, unless your language settings are off on your tablet or something. I don't know. I don't see that above anything when I share it. but I'm saying I would guess that they phrase it that way for, social media sake. Your setting is set up for Spanish. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. All right, so the Nevada's Loveland Cave, the Siteka, which is what the Paiute Indians would call the giants, basically in that area. So the remains of the Siteka, which are a legendary tribe of red-haired cannibalistic giants that were found in a cave in 1911, who were found by two men hired to mine bat guano. Now, why someone would be mining bat guano is kind of beyond me, or what bat guano might be used for. I truly am not sure about that. But at any rate, that's the story. One normally avoids bat guano because it's highly toxic to humans, but yeah, Sandy has a tablet or she's on her desktop perhaps, but I would say your settings are off on that for your language settings. So according to Paiute legends, these giants were at war with the tribe, and after much warring, they supposedly got trapped inside this cave in Loveland, and the Paiute set fire to the cave when the Siteka refused to come out, and it ended up killing them all. And then they sealed the cave, essentially. No, Lori, not a significant amount. No, you're on your PC tonight. Tablet is charging. Yeah, it could be the language settings on your PC, Sandy. That seems like that would be the only way you would see something in Spanish when you normally don't. So when they refused to come out, they basically set a fire to smoke them out, and they, I guess, technically would have probably died from smoke inhalation inside this cave. And so their remains were found. Now, whether that was totally true or not, I don't know, because the remains that were found were, I have some images of some of the finds of them, and it really did look more like a burial site for the skeletal remains there, and the artifacts that were found with them more so than, just random giant skeletons in all kinds of weird positions scattered about the floor. It isn't that at all. They were very positioned and had baskets full of grave goods, etc., found with them. So it seems more like a burial site, but that was the Paiute legend that went with it anyway. Hey, Marianne. So there were bones, baskets, and weapons found there. More than 10,000 artifacts were found from the Lovelock caves. 2 were male and 2 were female of the skeletons found. Hey, Kim. And I guess now whether it was from the dry desert environment or they were actually mummified, I'm not sure, but it said they were mummified red-haired giants. I'm thinking it would be more due to the environment of the dry desert heat, having the effects of desiccating out the corpses into a mummified form rather than them being mummified with intention. But let me find those remains here. Let's see. Okay. So, nope, that's a handprint. We don't want that right yet. Here is, now granted, the way they showed the picture is kind of weird, the way it's lit, but it gives you the sense at least of the red hair and what they found. I think it could have been lit and shown differently, but yeah, it is what it is, right? That's the only one I can find. So that's the skull of one of the giant skeletons found in Lovelock Cave. And that's just an image of the cave in which these things were found. And our shoulder doesn't like that. Just trying to find, because for some reason it doesn't look like they fully saved my pictures in order. Wait, I think that was the right picture. Yes, okay. So here's an image of, it says, because of an earthquake, the cave's entrance did eventually collapse. to Lovelock Cave, but you know, they kind of dug it out. So here's a picture of the cave that it was found in once they kind of cleared out the debris from the earthquake. And here's one of the skulls that they found. Now this is kind of freaky because you can tell it's shaped differently. Yes, it's humanistic, but it's quite different from ours. It doesn't unfortunately have another like normal size skull next to it, but you can see by the shape that it's a lot different than ours. So you'll see. Check that thing out. So you can notice how much thicker the jawbone is from ours and how much more pronounced the brow ridge is. Pretty freaky, right? Yeah, let's see. Here are some of the other skeletal remains. Now, some of them are kind of bashed in and destroyed, but they're all in a museum currently. So those are some of the other skulls that were found. There is a quarter next to this one for size comparison, but that's it for size wise. But I mean, if they're wanting to show that, you know, these are, yeah, it does kind of look like that, doesn't it, Mary? And, you know, in person, you can kind of see the difference in the image that it's not in a helmet. But yes, the jaw and the forehead are so pronounced that it does kind of look like it's sunken into a helmet, but it's not. You can see on the sides where it has like the cheekbones coming out and stuff. Is this part of the same ones? Yes. So here are some other images of them, like from the front and the side of one of the skulls found. Now, as you can see, like the pen here, the brain cavity here is like goes back further and is longer than what ours would be, or is, I should say. And the jawbone is much heavier than what ours is, even in that image. Let's see here. I don't know where. Oh, okay. I missed a whole page of. Yeah, see, this stuff should have been in later. Okay. So here is a few more of the skulls and skull remnants that were found. Now, this does show size differences compared to a typical human skull. So you can see a bit of the difference in this image. The skull of a Lovelock cave giant compared to a normal human skull, it says on the description of the picture. Okay. I don't know why it kind of saved my pictures out of order tonight. So you'll have to kind of bear with me, but so here is another one found in situ. Now, in situ in archaeological terms means that it was found on site, unmoved. Can you show the skulls again now that I have you on the big screen so you can see? Yes, I certainly can, Nancy. Did those have double rows of teeth? These ones didn't, Sandy. There are ones that do, and we're going to talk about some of them. However, the Lovelock cave ones didn't have the double rows of teeth. All right, so here you go, Nancy. Here's some of there's a human skull shown next to the giant skull for size comparison. Okay, hopefully you caught that. And here is a straight on picture of it. So I don't know if you can see it better any closer up, but oh, that's my pen. This is actually bony structure. You can see it better in person at the picture. I know it kind of looks helmety on screen here, but it is, like, you can tell kind of cheekbone structure in looking at it in person. So there's that one, Nancy. And anyone else who came in late. This is inside of the cave where this stuff got found in Lovelock, Nevada. Like I said, they were discovered originally in the 1800s by two guys who were mining for bat guano, which is bat poop. I don't know why they would be, but and the legend associated with them was from the Paiute Indians that they were fighting with them, and they refused to come out of the cave, so they set fire at the mouth of the cave to kind of smoke them out, and then killed them. So there's them. Unhappy shoulder. And this one here. This was the one, Nancy, where I was saying that the brain cavity part of the skull goes further backward than ours does. It's like, I mean, it's bigger, yes, but it's much much more expansive than ours is. And let's see. Here is one that was found in situ, which is, it was before it got excavated and moved from the location they found it in. So like when they first uncover any artifact and move it, it's called being found in situ or photographed in situ, which is language for on site, or language, Latin. And then this one here, if I didn't show it already, so you can see, is the size comparison between the human skull and what the giant skull size is. So there you have it, my dear. Set that there. Almost like a protective armor. Yeah, but except his bone looks sort of apish. Yeah, kind of like Neanderthalish, if you will. Yeah, huge compared to a human, absolutely. Okay, so there were two females and two male skeletons that were found in the Lovelock caves. The male was 8 feet tall and the females were about 6.5 feet tall. 2 more skeletons were found near Lovelock in Humboldt dry lake bed. Yeah, I wouldn't either, no. I mean, I'm 5'3", so to go above that to 8 feet tall, no. So there were 2 more skeletons found near Lovelock in the Humboldt dry lake bed. One was 8.5 feet tall and the other nearly 10 feet tall. And yet another one was found in nearby Freedman Ranch in 1939 that measured 7 foot and 7 inches tall. So biggies, right? And then in 1928, a 9 foot 11 inch skeleton was found by a farmer who was digging a trash pit in Tensas Parish, Louisiana. Now, with trash pits, they would, dig a hole in the ground to throw their trash remains in and then bury it over, much like a landfill. So he found this 9 foot 11 inch skeleton while digging this pit. Right. So you got like half an inch on me, Nancy. So same idea. In 1931, a 10 foot 2 inch skeleton was found by a boy burying his dog in Madison Parish, Louisiana. Now, in Louisiana, for those who may not know, rather than areas being set up like counties, they have parishes, is what they're called. So, hi, Keith. Hi, Ann. We got pictures tonight. You just missed a handful of them, son. So let's see. So yeah, 10 foot 2 inches. That's deeper than the deep end of the swimming pool. So in 1856 in East Wheeling, West Virginia, a decayed human skeleton claimed by eyewitnesses to measure 10 feet 9 inches tall was unearthed by laborers whilst plowing a vineyard. Now, I'm kind of guessing because of the year of 1856, probably with slaves, and they just called them laborers, but, 10 feet 9 inches tall. And in 1833 in Lompoc Rancho, California, a skeleton measuring 12 feet tall was unearthed by soldiers digging a pit for a powder magazine to go in. Oh, Jake, that was your claw. I thought something was crawling on me. The specimen had, now here, Sandy, is where your teeth come in. This specimen that was dug up in California did have the double row of teeth and was surrounded by stone axes, carved skulls, carved shells, porphyry, I think I'm saying it correctly, blocks, which are like igneous rocks, similar to lava stone, but they had hard to read symbols on them. They couldn't decipher the symbols to know what the writing was or, what the language was, but they did have them. Now, let me see. I do have a picture. Let me find it here. Oh, that's weird. It did weird things with my pictures last night. I don't know why. All right. So just to give, now this is a jawbone. I forgot. I guess I missed this picture. This is a jawbone of one of the giants found in the Loveland caves, compared with like denture imprints from a human, to give an idea of the size difference between the jawbone that was found and what human teeth size are. So that gives you an idea just how much larger theirs are compared to ours. So, shoulder, stop it. I'm looking for, here we go. So here's one of the skulls found that had the double rows of teeth in it. Try to get it up close. There you go. So you can see. My pen here. So as you can see, there's the 2 rows of teeth in its mouth. Same ones. Now there was, we'll save that for a minute. Okay. I know, right? Now there was a story from Indiana. It was an unknown year, but I'm guessing it was a little ways back. But in Brewersville, Indiana, a 9-foot 8-inch tall skeleton was excavated from one of the mounds there. And in Clearwater, Minnesota, the skeleton of 7 giants were found in mounds. Now these had receding foreheads and complete double rows of teeth. And so, like the picture I just showed of the double rows of teeth, that was from the Minnesota find. And here is one of the skeletons and how they found it on site within the burial site of it. And it says double rowed teeth skeletons found at Clearwater, Minnesota. So you can see how they discovered it. So it's just kind of, it's like, I'm hard to tell if it died in that position or they perhaps set the body up that way after death. I'm not clear from an archaeological standpoint which that would be. I'd have to see, I guess, the other types of things around it of was it posed or, placed that way. Let's see here. Now they also had found these weapons. Some of them have been found across different sites. Maybe, but it would have to be a genetic code for the height though, Lori. So even if there were interbreeding as far as some of the anomalies found with them, it wouldn't account for their extreme heights, or else you would see that more in the basic human population, I think. What kind of a cloak it had on? I look kind of like the remnants of a shirt, Nancy. Let me pull it back up here. It just kind of looked like a shirt or a jacket of some kind. I mean, it's kind of raggy. So it's hard to tell from that. Now these weapons, they were found at Lovelock Cave. They were found at a few other sites as well. They're called an atlatl, which is So, well, I'll show the picture to demonstrate it. Now, these were also, humans use these same type of designs, but so like something would be put inside that slot, kind of like a piece of leather, what have you, and it could wing a stone or something at an animal to have it be like a weapon. And the other is kind of like a blade. Oh, dog is moving. Did they exist with dinosaurs? I don't think so, Mary. It's hard to say because any time that they've been like whoever's discovered them has sent them on to bigger museum areas or city areas for further research, and yet it doesn't seem like they ever hear back. There's no follow-up stories on any dating of them. So it's hard to say exactly when they existed. Obviously, I mean, I think most of these, like we were talking about before you came in tonight, that everything seems to kind of fall in. Careful, Jake. Like with will you be careful, please, and not fall? Of the ancient civilizations, they tend to be separated into the, before the universal flood or after it. Welcome back, lady. You just missed Lovelock Cave. They seem to be split up between when the biblical flood story happened, but now it's more called like the universal flood story because it's listed in cultures all around the world, whether they had any association with each other or not. So I would say probably not the time of the dinosaurs. But when they did, it's hard to say. I don't know time frame wise. So anyhow, those are some of the weapons that were found, both, like I said, in Lovelock Cave. But there are also other ancient humans, indigenous people, etc., who use the weapons like the atlatls. Those were a common form of weaponry. So whether that was actually from the giants or from the indigenous people of the Paiute tribe, etc., of the time, hard to say, but they found them in that cave system anyway. So in 1895, there was a mound in Toledo, Ohio, which held 20 skeletons that were seated facing east with jaws and teeth, quote, twice as large as those of present day people, end quote. And nearby there was a large bowl with unknown hieroglyphic figures on it. And that was recorded as being printed in the Chicago Record paper, October 24th of 1895. And so, like I said, all of these finds, despite science saying, oh, well, there's only circumstantial evidence found, how can at what point does all these skeletal remains go? How is that circumstantial evidence? A skeleton is a skeleton is a skeleton. The size is the size is the size. Like, it's going to play out. No matter who's measuring it, it's still going to be the same size. So I'm not sure whether they're calling that circumstantial evidence. But that's like how it's presented. The science only looks at it as their circumstantial evidence to say they might have existed. And archaeology seems to still stay playing it safe as being like, oh, well, maybe not. They're not, they're very wishy-washy about it. But again, when these things get found, even if the evidence of them disappears, like the skeleton disappears, whether they sent it out for further analysis at another museum at a nearby city or Smithsonian, whomever, then the newspapers in whatever area they were found in, that's big news back in the 1800s to have something like that found. And they all publish stories. These newspaper articles are from globally, were printed pertaining to these finds. So where could that have been fake news across the board? Probably not. That's one way of hiding the facts. Yeah. So, again, they say that oh, well, if something was found in, Paris, let's say, or a town nearby Paris, well, we sent it to Paris for further analysis, but they never heard anything back on it. What did Paris do with the remains? Bury it? My guess would be probably yes. Just, losing it in the archives, because they don't ever hear anything back on it as follow-up. But these newspaper articles prove that these things have been discovered, because that would have been big ass news back in the day if something like this got discovered in any location. That would be newsworthy to make a story up about it and write about it in all the local newspapers. And these newspaper reports all still exist. So where would that have come from if they had not been found? So whatever they want to look at as circumstantial, even if the evidence disappeared about them, they still have all the newspaper articles backing up the find. So now there have been a bunch of fossilized footprints also found globally. These have been found around the world. Like I said, there was one found in South Africa that is 4 feet long and estimated to be at least 200 million years old. Talk about blowing things out of the water. That goes way far being past when the biblical stories that everybody goes by to date things by existed. Mainstream science, they estimate that these main ancient societies and civilizations that existed didn't really go past 5,000 years BCE, 5 to 6,000 years BCE, whereas 200 million years ago, we talked about that with the show on the Anunnaki and Sumeria, that big timeline I did, that these are lost civilizations that when nobody knows where they came from or where they went, but there's remnants found of them. So these footprints, they're fossilized. I don't see where they can really be disputed. Like there was evidence where it showed dinosaur footprints fossilized next to human-shaped footprints, and science was saying, oh, well, the dinosaurs didn't exist with the humans. Obviously, there must have been something that occurred. The dinosaurs happened to be walking where humans walk, or vice versa, or they walked together, perhaps in some format, to have them like literally walking side by side over this fossilized riverbed, or it showed these multiple sets of footprints that you can't hide the archaeological record. You can interpret it in a multitude of ways, but it is what it is. If it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it probably is a duck, right? So one of these fossilized footprints that got found in South Africa, like I said, this first got discovered by the one that's 4 foot long. That was thought to be about 200 million years old, and it was thought to belong to someone 27 feet tall, or a cat mimicking a duck. Only in your world, Karen. So this being would have, if the foot was 4 feet long, that it's thought that the being who it belonged to would have had to be like 27 feet tall. Imagine that walking by. And it said, now science of course says that it is from natural erosion. How can you get something occurring in nature, chalking it up to natural erosion in the shape of a human footprint? That's a pretty distinctive shape. Or foot human print, correct. So this one is thought to have been pushed up into an up position, so that it's up and it's going up and down now by the tectonic plates that have occurred over time, but it was initially flat on the ground, of course. Look at what you're gonna be, baby, because I gotta lean to show the picture. Go going, dude. Dalmatian transmigration. Yeah, that's what they're telling us exactly. Yeah, lost in the moment, Jaker Baker. Pushed all his limits today to where he's weeble wobbly tonight because of how bad he stayed on his legs today. Not listening at all today to me, right, Jake? Mm-hmm. Go where you're gonna go, baby. Get comfortable. That's why I said, wait a minute, because I have to lean that way to move my shoulder right so the tablet shows on air. Come on, dude. Holding up the show. Figure out where you're gonna go, big guy. Be careful of the edge. Mm-hmm. Come on, baby. Find a spot. Okay. So this one is nice because you got the guy for size comparison. So the being that this is thought to belong to is guesstimated to have been at 27 feet tall. Now, if you look, I'm going to get it as close as I can and hopefully it won't distort it. Look really closely in at the, like where the toes would be placed. You kind of see the ridges of where, like, the, you know, so when the human takes a step, right, we spring off, we move our foot forward onto the balls, our toes kind of indent and bend, and then we lift it to take the next step. So when a footprint gets recorded, if you will, the toe prints are very distinctive in nature. You can even see, let me see if I can show it on here. It comes across on camera, okay. In here, you see like the distinctive lines separating each of the toes, where each kind of dug into the earth before taking the next step. Now, how would that be a natural erosion that created? It's almost like a cop-out explanation to me. So at the hairdresser yesterday for 4 hours, maybe I breathed too many fumes. Maybe. And let's see here. So this is like a photograph of the upper portion of that footprint. And again, you can clearly see the lines going in between the toes where they kind of went into the earth. And again, you know, the idea that that's from natural erosion seems kind of silly to me. I mean, make up your own minds, of course, but yeah. So that's the top portion of the other picture. No, because, you know, there's a number of theories as to why that history kind of tries to get buried. Here's another one. It's called Lord Hanuman's Giant Footprints Throughout Asia, with pictured next to it another person's foot. Now, again, it seems like that would be difficult to have take place through natural erosion, to have it shaped just like human. But just me, you know, that's my opinion of it. Form your own as always. Looks like a foot to me too. Here's another one. Now I don't know the exact location of this, but it has someone's foot inside of it to demonstrate the size. Okay. Going back to my natural blonde. Are you? I didn't know you were a natural blonde. Let's see. Okay, so that's it for the footprint ones. So let's see. 2016, one was found in Guizhou, China, belonging to a 13-foot tall person. I want to say that picture is the one that the last one I just showed. I think that's the one that was found in China, even though it's not labeled. I'm remembering from my research this morning. So I think that's the one that was found in Guizhou, China. I'm gonna pop more Sudafed. I didn't take it at 7. I took it, I want to say like 5. So I'll do again. As you can hear, I'm getting snuffly again. We had a hard rainstorm come through, and then it just, next thing I look, it's totally clear out, but the humidity is super high, and it always makes me soupy in my sinuses. Okay. And then in 1919, from an article that appeared in the Postville Herald on November 7, 1919, quote, the fossilized remains of a giant measuring 32 feet 10 inches were found according to a report recently discovered by workmen near the little village of Nanaquimulpa, state of Veracruz. So again, another newspaper article saying, yeah, there was a find. In 1895, an article from Strand magazine dated from December 1895, quote, traces of the elder faiths of Ireland, end quote, by W.G. Woodmartin mentions a fossilized giant found during mining operations in County Antrim, Ireland. The principal measurements are the entire length was 12 feet 2 inches. The girth of the chest, meaning how wide the chest was 6 feet 6 inches across. The length of the arms was 4 feet 6 inches. And it describes 6 toes on the right foot and a gross weight is 2 tons. And I'm including some of these to demonstrate, like, location wise, that, you know, it's not just found in any one place. These are from around the globe. These get reported, and they're in the media from whatever was, you know, newspaper, whatever, magazines that were popular at that time. So they're not going to just print it just because. And in 1998, bones of a giant man were found near the city of Borjomi, Georgia, the country, not the state in the United States, that was estimated to be 9 to 10 feet tall, and the skull was 3 times the size of a normal human skull. Find that one for you. Let's see here. Well, first of all, this was a skeleton on display, an Ecuadorian giant skeleton that's on display in a museum. That was, I guess they found the female skull after a heavy rainstorm in 2013, and they kind of built the skeleton to go with it based on the skull size. So I wanted to show you that too. There's no article related to it, but as you can see at the bottom of the picture by the leg bone, there's a woman standing there. I'm sure probably standard height, 5 foot something. And yes, she barely comes up to the knee joint. So that's on display in a museum in Ecuador. And these were found, a giant femur uncovered in Ohio in 2011 by the American Association for Alternative Archaeology, similar to the evidence presented in court. So the dude's holding up for what, you know, showing what he found of the bones. And let's see. Now, this is a handprint that got found in a cave in Nevada. It doesn't say if it was the Loveland caves or another cave in Nevada. It simply says that handprint found in Nevada cave. And the guy is holding on to like a sword for a size comparison to demonstrate, you know, how big the handprint is. Feet, that's the teeth. Okay. So here are the bones of the skull that was found in where was it? The city of Borjomi, Georgia. No. Okay. And that one was estimated to be 9 to 10 feet tall. Now, the Smithsonian Museum. There's a lot of fake news stuff out there pertaining to the Smithsonian. Now, I heard it too, and I thought that this was valid, but it was covered, I guess, by Snopes, which is the website Snopes.com, which regularly reviews hoaxes and so forth to determine was the story true or not. It's fairly trustworthy, I think, to dispel rumors and so forth, especially online. But so there was a big thing regarding the Smithsonian allegedly getting rid of all these skeletal remains with intention, and then claiming not to know anything about what happened to them, etc. And if they were hiding it, there was a big Supreme Court case regarding it. There was actually no Supreme Court case regarding it, but we're still going to touch on it. So, but there have been other cases involving the Smithsonian Museum that seem to demonstrate collusion with the government in the United States. And we know how the government here tends to hide a lot of things from the national public, that we can't handle the truth, and keep things back. And there have been other times where uncovering other stories of archaeological importance pertaining to things that involve the Smithsonian investigating, that when their part came into the puzzle, they either denied any involvement in it, even though it got reported on in local newspapers as them being involved in it, or that they denied involvement after the fact, what have you, or denied getting any sort of remains pertaining to a specific site. So a little sketchy there on their part. And we're going to get into a little bit more of the history with that in a second here. So around the turn of the 20th century, the New York Times, the London Globe, and the Scientific American published articles reporting on the discoveries of giant human skeletons, and concluded that the remains were sent to the Smithsonian for further study. The evidence was not seen or reported on again. You know, Karen, I'm telling you. So, like, nothing was ever seen or heard from on these finds ever again. Now, that part I do believe, because, so from an archaeological standpoint, we all know of all these ancient digs that took place on ancient indigenous people's burial grounds and so forth, where they would just scoop up any bones found and take them back to the museum, and they would end up unlabeled in drawers in storage, you know, for decades or centuries, to where the point where any identification was barely possible because nothing was ever done with them. So they disturb these natural grave sites of great religious import to the people they came from. So they came up with a law called the Nagpra Law, which was basically the patriotic law that says if any indigenous person's remains are found anywhere on any dig site, because, so archaeologically speaking, say if a contractor buys up a site, they want to build a mall, let's say, and they start digging and they find archaeological remains in the dirt as they're digging. By law, they are supposed to stop all digging and contact local museums or archaeological teams to come in and at least try to gather any evidence up, any artifacts up for protection purposes before digging is allowed to resume. Now, they can be pressed for time to do this, but it is law. They're supposed to follow this format. And if any remains should be found that are, American Indian, Native American, indigenous people is the new preferred term for those people, those burials. If they are found, and they're having to go back through old museums and storage units, if you will, and identify where they did get them from and return them to the people that they belong to for them to do reburial of the remains in accordance with their traditions. It's now law. So a lot of these, they got sent there and they were never heard from or seen again on these giant remains, especially male humans. Yeah, we have like one or two in the group, but that's about it. Well, maybe three. Okay, so it should be noted that the museum is an extension of the government, with congressional members sitting on its board of regents. So basically, Congress does have its fingers in a pie of the Smithsonian Museum, right? And you can't tell me that they're not kind of operating from that standpoint in operating, the museum and the behind the scenes stuff. Now, the museum was originally created with the idea of preserving these things for later posterity, but there have been papers found dating back to like the early 1900s that basically says that certain things that get found are in the Americans' best interest to not disclose them. So I think that this falls into that. So after many skeleton finds of giants, the Smithsonian would be called in and to investigate, and they'd take custody of them for further study, quote unquote, and without ever being seen or heard from again. Before that law, we had a museum in Illinois called Dixon Mounds, and you could see all the skeletons, of course. Now, yeah, exactly. And so now they have to be returned to the people of origin to have them, receive proper burial. So newspapers across the nation reported on these findings and also printed pictures on them as well. Once, photography was available, some of these finds happened before photography really took off as far as they were finding the practice of photography. Once they did, pictures were taken of these finds and they magically disappeared. Religion also comes into play as far as Christians hoping for proof of the Nephilim from the biblical texts. So that also plays into it that, but the Christians want evidence, any evidence that can be found to back up the biblical stories to prove that they're true. And I can understand that. And they're not just stories. And so again, the Nephilim are supposed to be the offspring of the fallen angels mating with humans and producing giants, as Nephilims were giants. Now, there are multiple stories out there pertaining to giants. Some of them report that as though they are Nephilim. Others report that the giants are a whole separate race. Some report them, even in the Bible, of being men of great renown, kind of hinting at their moral and ethical standing, that they were, upstanding people. Others report them as bloodthirsty, cannibalistic beings. So I think, it depends on where the stories are coming from pertaining to how giants got perceived. And just like today, fear of the unknown is going to ramp up, characteristics put on them. And back then, of course, if it made a good story, sometimes you would embellish the certain facts to kind of grow the story. So there have been reports from whistleblowers alleging that the Smithsonian destroyed remains of tens of thousands of human skeletons, ranging between 6 feet to 12 feet high. Snopes says that there was actually no court case, but it doesn't negate that they destroyed these skeletal remains. Instead, it's thought that the Smithsonian received them like shipments of the giant remains and mistook them as things as being like mastodons, remains from ancient fauna that once walked the earth, like the mastodons, like woolly mammoths and so forth. Now, this seems a bit like a stretch. If you found a skull of a giant, there's no way to mistake that as being belonging to a woolly mammoth, but the story says that it's more likely that they would receive these shipments of giant bones, and not knowing they were giants, that they would then put them into their current displays of ancient fauna that once walked the earth, like woolly mammoths, elephants, things like that. Now, in some cases, like leg bones or something like that, is that a maybe? That maybe, if that's all they got sent, but skeletal remains are more than just a leg bone. There would be no denying the skulls. And again, pictures and all these newspaper articles still remain. Straight evidence of them, yeah. Do you think that the government hides all this because they would have to rewrite history? Well, yeah, and we're going to talk about that at the end of the show of, what about history would they need to rewrite about that? Because again, most accepted scientific and archaeological views on the timeline of humanity only goes back to 6000 BCE, and that's it. Yet all these archaeological sites dating way, way further back than that, they exist, and they're saying, but they don't really, they're dated, and they're thought to expand that further back 20, 30,000 years ago. And whilst they don't necessarily come out and call it BS outright, they still don't fully accept it as the reality of the date, or they say they think it's a bit off or what have you. They don't accept that as these ancient civilizations could have existed further back. Or are they hiding something more? Well, that's the question, Nancy, is, what are they hiding with the existence of a race of giants? And obviously, the Bible talks about them too. So even if it's from a Christian standpoint, they were in existence. And the Bible says that that the Nephilim just left elsewhere. And ancient astronaut theorists suggest that they think it means like off planet that they left. But the Nephilim are only mentioned in a few sentences here and there throughout the Bible. So it's not like it's a big part of the text anyway, but it still is in there. So it really would not be putting anything, pushing the timelines for Christianity, even, and some may use that as an excuse, but they're mentioned in there too. So, back now, had to vent to my boss about stupid S employees. Sorry to hear that, Erin. So in some cases, the reverse is thought to be possible, that in some instances, random bones found were thought to be of giant origin, but actually belong to ancient fauna like elephants. So could the people who found them mistaken what they thought were belonging to a giant, but in fact belong to like woolly mammoths or something? Is that possible? Yeah, maybe in some cases, if there was no skull, the full skeleton present, maybe. Now we also, as me and my love of archaeology, there are also ancient sites that are either thought to be built by or for giants. They're innumerable around the world, but I'm only touching on a couple of them here. Yeah, I don't believe that either, Nancy. And even in today's world, you find those individuals that are, in the 7-foot tall range, or have giantism, and it's thought to be like a pituitary gland malfunction, something of that nature that causes it. But there's never any discussion with it of, is it thought that something like that could have been responsible for these people whose remains were found from so long ago, that something like that could have caused it? Or in the reverse, are those people who have that height thing going on now, are they descendants? Do they carry any DNA markers from the giant skeletal remains? Is there any DNA evidence supporting that? I don't know if that's ever been investigated, or if it is, I'm sure it's been suppressed, but that's my thoughts on that. Exactly, Karen. So ancient sites that are thought to be built by or for giants. One of them is the Hyperborean Gallery in Romania. Now, this got found in 1976. Now, Romania, of course, is more isolated in terms of like interaction with the rest of the world in a lot of ways. They may not be as evolved in the realms of science, etc., or have access to the same type of modern equipment per se that the rest of us may have or take for granted. So keeping that in mind, yeah, they do, Nancy. So in Romania, they call it the Hyperborean Gallery or Gallery 13. And a skeleton of a 32.8 foot tall giant was found in 1976, dating up to about 5,500 years ago, from an underground gallery that was built in the region by the Gatharsi, I think is how you would say it, which were a people of Scythian origin in the time of Herodotus. Well, yeah, and the thing is, most people are not, and they don't line up the realization that we're not stupid with. I mean, I understand military secrets and all that, but there's a whole lot they could tell us too that they don't. So it's thought that this lines up with the time of Herodotus. And in February of 2012, there was a group of geologists followed a gold vein that ended at the base of this gallery where they found a grave site not made of common rock. Lab results showed components of it included 55% of it was 50 karat gold dust, 15% was granite dust, and 30% was wolfram, which is a type of stone. Those pyramids being built make more sense with giants. Yeah, they do. And there is some that in the research, but I wasn't going to go down quite that rabbit hole with the research last night on this topic. But yeah, that is a school of thought. Absolutely. Now, analysis showed that the composite rock had been made using an unknown technology, so not known to modern day science. So this is one of the skeletons that was found in Romania in a pit. And so this is like the opening to what is that Gallery 13 of the Hyperborean Gallery. I had to make sure I was saying it correctly. Now, there was a paleolinguist on site that noted like some green writing that was not decipherable on this tombstone. Here is, now this photo is hard to see, but then again, it's from 1976 Romania. So keeping that in mind, I will use my pen to help point out what. So here is person. Let me get my pen there. Stop jumping around, camera. Don't freeze. Did I freeze? I did, damn it. Okay, let me jump out and come back, guys. I froze on my end and on your end too. So I think you can hear me. So I'll be right back. Let me go out and come back in. Stupid thing. Hi. Okay, hopefully. Okay, hopefully I'm back and you guys can see me. I will approach slower and see if that makes a difference because we haven't had this problem all night. So we're not going to start now. So thank you for bearing with me. I apologize for the glitchiness. So I'll go slower here and hopefully it won't affect it. Okay, so this over here in the photograph is a guy crouched down next to the skeletal remains, just to give you a sense of the size, but it's hard to make out if that's a guy, but it is. He's blurry in the picture, but just to give you a sense of the size difference between him and the remains that were found. So maybe that's the key, is I kind of rushed up too quickly with it. Thank you. I am back. I am. Pain when that happens. Okay. So this tomb got found, and like I said, lab results showed the components of it that 55% was 50, not 25 karat gold or 20 karat gold, 5% karat gold. No, 50 karat gold dust, and that 15% was granite dust, and 30% was wolfgram, which is a type of gemstone. Analysis showed that the composite rock had been made using an unknown technology. So they don't know how this thing got made, but it was made. It's again known as the Hyperborean Gallery or Gallery 13. Now, in the name of security, yeah, I know I froze. Like I said, I don't know if it's because I took the tablet too close to the camera, which you wouldn't think that would impact it, but it didn't do it when I came up slower, so I don't know. So the gallery was permanently sealed by the Army in the name of, quote, security. The giant skeleton had its legs gathered to one side, and it got sent to Moscow for analysis without anything being reported on it since then. So yet again, a government took custody of the remains, and it was never seen or heard from again. So the tombstone part of it got redug up in 2012 and was analyzed, and this measured 19.7 feet wide and 39.4 feet long. Yeah, the camera didn't like the tablet, apparently. So the tombstone measured 19.7 feet wide and 39.4 feet long and was 29.8 feet tall. It weighed almost 17 tons and contained around 900 tons of solid gold. It would have taken over 20 years of mining using traditional methods to achieve that much gold in one place. Now, the last thing known about it is that it was cut up into 80 smaller pieces. Why? It doesn't make any sense to me. I get for easier transportation, of course. However, with something that old, you wouldn't just go hacking it into 80 smaller pieces to transport it. I mean, that seems kind of extraneous to me, but archaeologically speaking, that is like a nightmare situation to do to a find like that. You wouldn't destroy it like that, but that's Romania. Its current location is unknown today. So when further excavation had been done, there was an entrance to that pit found that had that skeleton in it. Don't know why they just can't get along, So I'm assuming they are referencing this pit that has the skeleton in it there, which pretty much seems like it would be. Let me find the other picture here. I mean, they look like it's just at a different angle, but it looks similar anyway to where that guy's crouched down. So from that pit is what I'm assuming they're discussing. So when further excavation had been done, an entrance to the pit was found, which cascaded to a spiral staircase. It was also reported that they saw a milky violet light radiating from inside. Don't know what that would be. Only the paleolinguist on site was brave enough to descend down in, but apparently he never returned back up after he descended. So whatever he encountered must have killed him, or, you know, there was something down there toxic and destroyed him. It doesn't say how long he was down there missing for before they declared him dead, or, you know, it doesn't say any of that. So did they wait 5 minutes and say, yeah, well, yeah, Bob's dead, and leave? Who knows? It's Romania, pretty remote. You know, I don't know. It didn't say any of that stuff. But it just said that he did descend down in to investigate what this milky purple violet light was, and that was radiating up from inside, and he didn't return. So kind of, you know, Romania, historically speaking, is a very superstitious area. So nobody else would dare go down in it. So that's why I'm saying, you know, did they wait 5 minutes and say, well, Bob's not coming back, so let's seal that up, because, you know, who knows what ghoulies and ghosts or vampires might live down there? Who knows? So either way, it got sealed back up with cement by the army. Anyone present was made to sign confidentiality agreement. So what lies beyond the staircase still to this day remains mystery. So in Romania, locals tried planting an apple tree on a hill in the, forgive my butchering, but Bozorial area. A humanoid skeleton was found that's nearly 8.5 feet tall, and it had some pottery fragments that were discovered with it. So date in Romania alone, just in the country of Romania, between 1940 and 1950, those years, that 10-year period, archaeology found 80 skeletons that measured between 13 and 16 feet in height. In okay, so I did listen to the pronunciation of that. Giorgio, there we go. In Pantelima Labada, which is, there were 20 giant skeletons found in 1989. I think I would say probably the superstition, and because, say, if they were calling down to him and he didn't answer Nancy, then, you know, they're going to figure something happened. It's not safe and they're not going to go down there, is my guess. And again, there's, you know, there, like other human burials that were discovered in, by our reckoning, what would be more modern day history, they still were handling certain human burials in graveyards as having evidence of treating a corpse for vampirism, to prevent vampirism from happening, including burying them with like a metal grate over top of the skull so that it couldn't escape or bite anybody, chopping the head off, burning the heart, you know, cutting the heart out and burning it, remains, etc. So superstitions are still quite common there. So my guess is that had to play into it to a degree of fear. If he didn't return, well, who knows what that could be. And I'm not going down there. You're going down there. I'm not going down there. You know what? Let's seal it up for security. Sorry to hear that, Lori. So, in Gantiha temples on the island, which was built by giants. So the Gantiha temples are megalithic complexes from the Neolithic period on the Mediterranean island of Gozo. Now, we did a show once on another set of temples that were built on this, like near this area of the Mediterranean, that again, it was one of those in a temple period of time, archaeologically speaking, that where the people came from who built them and worshipped, what have you, there, and where they went at the end of the period of time it was occupied for is completely unknown. The same remains for this site as well. They're kind of interrelated in that way. They're part of the temple period of this time frame of the Mediterranean island. So the massive temple predates the Great Pyramids and Stonehenge. And it's one of these who built it and where did they go all of a sudden mysteries. The buildings were built between 3600 and 3200 BCE. Now, it is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, so it is protected. They do get funding to keep it and so forth and to maintain it, which is important. It's thought that there was no use of metal tools for it, but they were working with blocks of stone weighing up to 50 tons each. I do have images of that site. So let me show you that. This is an aerial shot of the temple site, just to give you an idea of the image of it. Or the temple complex. Get back out. Here's a slightly like a lighter colored one, if that makes it any easier to see the components of it. So the next picture is, let me see if I can identify it on what I just showed you. I'm guessing it's a different entrance to that I just showed you. Just looking comparing the two pictures to see, is it like a close-up of that, but it's a different entrance altogether. So, don't rush it. There's the doorway. Okay, and again, these pre-Stonehenge and the Great Pyramids, time-wise. It does kind of look like an arena, but it's a temple. So the picture says, upon exploration of the sites by historians, that these vast monuments built by an ancient race of giants that inhabited Earth before the universal flood, an account of which is mentioned in the Maltese Islands, published in Lyon in 1536, written by Jean Quintin d'Autun, who was auditor to Grand Master Philippe Villiers de l'Isle Adam. Pretty good for the French, right? So the Maltese Islands was what we did a show on before, of other temple sites that were built that nobody knows who built them, or where they came from, or where they went when they were done. But these are the ones that are specifically thought to be built by giants. Local legend says that a giantess who ate nothing but broad beans, whatever broad beans are, and honey, bore a child from a man of the common people. And she built the temples and then used them to worship in. Yeah, that's it for picture. Okay, so that's it for the pictures. Close that down. Interesting that this story is actually similar to that of the Nephilim, of where you have a being who is mating with a human, and one of, whilst one was angelic in nature, the other is a giantess, but she still is mating with a human and then producing offspring from there, right? Historians believe, too, that they were built by an ancient race of giants that inhabited the earth before the universal flood, and surviving today, can't hear, some stones are 15 feet high and weigh as much as 5 tons. Now, its original facade was thought to be 48 feet high. I put the heck of a picture in my mind. I know, right? It's kind of like the reverse story. Well, actually, no, it's a similar story to Hagrid from Harry Potter. He had said that his mother was a giant and his father was a human. So, same idea there. Maybe that came from that. Hagrid. So surviving today, some stones are 15 feet high and weigh 5 tons. Its original facade was thought to be 48 feet high. They have an astronomical alignment and face east and southeast, so they can kind of track the movement of time, the seasons, and the planetary alignment of the night sky. You didn't see Harry Potter? Oh my goodness, woman. You've got to be probably the only person who hasn't. The books are really good too, so if you have the chance to read the book, that's interesting as well. So let's see. Interestingly, the same type of precision was also shown in the other temple eras that were built on Malta Islands. These islands are right next to Malta, so it's all interrelated and during the same time period where it's called the temple era. And, you know, precision was used in them and in moving the stones, and they don't have any idea of how or why. Yeah, the books are really good. I read them to my daughter for bedtime stories, so I came upon them. But yeah, at any rate, Hagrid is a character in there who is gameskeeper for a witchcraft school, and he is half giant, half human. So the local legend recounts that the first settlers were from the children of the giantess. Yeah, they were really good, Tanya. I agree. I had heard all this hoopla about them and got curious, like, you know, because there was all this, if you remember, the speculation over promoting magic to children and all, you know, witchcraft and all this stuff. And it, you know, good imagination writing from a woman who was actually a waitress at the time and trying to make ends meet as a single mom. And she wrote these books, becoming a billionaire, and she's given the majority of her fortune actually away and to people in need for different things throughout her career. But that aside, I digress. So the local legend recounts that the first settlers were from the children of giantess. Now the story goes that human killed her children when she was gone getting food. And she quickly catches up with the boat that took them. And people who took the children allegedly chop off her hands with axes, and she falls into the sea and drowns. Horrible story, right? Her children go forth and then populate the world from there. So kind of hints of Adam and Eve's story in there, as well as the Nephilim story, which is interesting, that correlation between them. So as we can see, evidence exists of giants once having existed both near in the United States, as well as around the globe in pre-flood days. Now let's discuss, why would modern day science and archaeology deny all of this evidence that's in existence? And now keeping in mind that what I presented here is a fraction of what's been found out there. There are several other sites out there that are lore-wise think that they are were made by giants or for giants. There's like burial sites, tombstone sites that the dimensions of like the cartouche for them, or the, not the cartouche, but the sarcophagus was a massive size to hold a massive body. No body remains were found, but then again, was that from loot and so forth taking off with any grave goods? Yeah, probably, but the remains of the structures are still there. And there's these types of structures that are found worldwide. So in addition to all these skeletal remains, newspaper articles, etc., yet people are still saying, well, there's only circumstantial evidence. So what would account for this, you know, the lack of commitment to that it being correct history? that there were once races of giants that existed around the world. Yeah, religion's part of it, because again, I mean, the Nephilim even are only mentioned in passing in the Bible. Now, some people have made it their career, like that. What's his name? Sandy, you know his name, the one that I've mentioned before, who's kind of a little bit of a born again zealot there. Good night, Mary. Marzul, the Marzuli guy. He has his own like network and so forth. He is all about thinking that all evidence of aliens are actually the Nephilim, and that they are really satanic beings, and he gets a little carried away with it. But there really is, yes, LA. Thank you, Danya. I knew it had A in the name. So it's, he kind of runs away with a lot of it, but the actual mentioning in the Bible of the Nephilim is a barely there mentioning. However, it would kind of shake things up for the existence of the creation story with Adam and Eve, and it would kind of throw that out of whack, and having to admit that yes, there was an ancient race of people like these. I mean, at the same time, the story of David and Goliath is David is a human man pitted up against a giant in battle, and he kills them. Now, it is very much, I think, meant to be allegorical of pitting good against evil, so to speak, and good winning out in that story of David and Goliath. But it still is presented, if you take it literally, of a human male fighting a giant and winning. Yes, afraid we all may riot, scared like we can't accept it. Yeah, I think that is a lot of the thought about it. And again, their admittance overall across the board with all of these ancient sites and populations of people is that they really only go back 5,000 to 6,000 years BCE, when the evidence surrounding all of these things, whether it's an ancient archaeological site or the skeletal remains, etc., that they go much, much further back, 10 to 20 to 50,000, 100, in that one case, 200 million years ago, in existence, that kind of blows those theories out of the water, right? So it would also refute the Darwin's theory of evolution that science seems kind of stuck on. Where in there is there room for giants? Like, what would giants have evolved from? So, it also shakes that idea up. So admitting to it, I mean, in other areas, they've been doing that with, whether it's Einstein's theories or any of the other geniuses of the world. They'll say that, well, new evidence shows that, or kind of negates this theory. So why can't they make that leap over the bridge to say Darwin was wrong too? Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And I do think survival of the fittest, sure. But that aside, to say we just evolved from apes, it's not encompassing enough. So I do think that there were all these different populations of people that existed in different ancient civilizations that, for whatever reason, whether it was through war, what have you, but kind of died off. And then, the next line of people came through. And perhaps even if the ancient astronaut theorists are correct that our DNA has been monkeyed with over time, no pun intended to the Darwinism, is that why they say that those theorists suggest that, each step along the way that their earlier incarnations may have built those things, and then they got wiped out through some natural disaster catastrophe that took out all of those, the existence of that or evidence for it. Yet all these building sites and archaeological sites globally that go past that timeline science traditionally puts on things, to push that back to say, yes, there were races of people that existed that were far more advanced than us and where we are now. And so, like, where did they go and where did they come from? So I think that this kind of falls into the same idea, that because almost every culture around the world has some mythological storyline in their history of giants being in existence, or being like a representing like a, I don't know, a darker negative energy force thingy that's behind them, whatever, being cannibalistic, however they get viewed, but that they are more evil beings versus men of honor and renown, as suggested both in the Bible as well as in the text of the Anunnaki, and that, you know, they were the initial rulers and kings before handing off the reins to humans to run things. So they go for that far back. So there's, you know, a number of systems that could be shaken up by acceptance and them owning to the evidence that has been discovered even over the last 200 years, to say, okay, yeah, there's something to this, or at least that it warrants closer investigation rather than just shutting it down. Stay open-minded to it. And they haven't really been doing that either. So suffice it to say, most skeletal remains that have been discovered in the last 200 years that were of giant stature have disappeared. But many of them report that they were sent to bigger cities or museums for further research, and then nothing is ever heard from them again. So they probably still have them, and they just keep it in hiding because it does shake it up, things with religious belief systems in the area, the political systems, the scientific theories. All of it would have to get rewritten and reaccepted, and they're not ready to make that leap yet. I believe they try to control us. The less facts we are told, the less we know. We are blindfolded like a communist country in all control. Honey, more about the United States is a communist country than not. In reality, if you balance out each thing by thing, yeah, there's not much difference between the two. We're told that, you know, we're free and have all the rights, but we comparatively don't have as many as most other countries think of us as having. So there you have giants in a nutshell. Again, there are other sites out there in support of them. However, you got the gist, enough to say that, you know, you can make up your own minds, but you can't refute the evidence either. Yeah, definitely, Sandy. So the next Willows spend is on, hard to believe, but September already, September 6th. And the topics on the board are the strange and dangerous Daedalus Cave, bizarre cases of mass hysteria, legends of man-eating plants, and savants, geniuses through disorders. Geniuses through disorders. So the strange and dangerous Daedalus Cave, the bizarre cases of mass hysteria, legends of man-eating plants, and savants, geniuses through disorder. Marianne is the cave. Run to the cave. Sandy says the geniuses. Gotcha. Sandy 2 says the geniuses savants. Gotcha. Tanya also says the cave. So again, it's the strange and dangerous Daedalus Cave, bizarre cases of mass hysteria, legends of man-eating plants, and savants, geniuses through disorders. Nancy says the plant. Gotcha. Lori says Goonie. Goonie Goo Goo, what? What do you mean, Lori? Strange and dangerous Daedalus caves, bizarre cases of mass hysteria, Legends of Man-Eating Plants or Savants. Nancy says, or the cave. Gotcha. Stacy says the cave. Clarify there, Lori, because I'm not sure what you meant to type, but. Or if that is an unknown topic, unknown to me, that I'm not sure what it is, if it is. So that's 4, 5, 6, 7. So 2 people haven't voted yet. I know Karen's one of them. I'm not sure who the other one. Geniuses Through Disorders. Okay, thank you, Lori. Who do you? Wasn't what that one was about. Or if it was some new topic you were suggesting that I had no idea what it was about, which, you know, it's possible. Okay, so I'm gonna say Karen might have popped off. I don't know. I'm showing live that there are 9 people watching. Renee says Guinness, so I'm gonna say you probably mean Genius, the Savants one. No, that's why I asked for clarification, because I wasn't sure where you were going with that. Renee's right there with you, Lori, with Guinness, Goonie Guinnesses. We don't know what that one is. Aaron's one of the other ones who hasn't voted. Aaron, we've got The Strange and Dangerous Daedalus Caves, Bizarre Cases of Mass Hysteria, Legends of Man-Eating Plants, or Savants, Geniuses Through Disorders. I love Renee. So Aaron can be the deciding vote because he has a tie, unless he picks one of the other ones that there isn't tie, and that negate that. Man-Eating Plants. Yeah, I knew you'd do that, so I threw that in there. All right, so Katie, you'll be the deciding vote. The Strange and Dangerous Daedalus Cave or Savant, Geniuses Through Disorders. There's a tie in each of those. So you can be the tiebreaker since Karen disappeared. Let's see if Katie is listening. This is Jeopardy, right?
Savants.
The Savants one. Okay. So we're covering Savants. Geniuses Through Disorders will be it for next week. She's the tiebreaker. Thank you, Katie. Circle that one. Okay, so then this Wednesday is book group, 8 o'clock Eastern, here in Willows Bend in the chat rooms. We're still working on the Seth material, The Nature of Personal Reality book. We're past a little way past the halfway point on it, so a little ways to go on it yet. And we're leaning towards Edgar Casey stuff next, but haven't fully decided yet. But that's on Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern. You'll see the post about it, the link pinned into the top of the page in the group as always, yada, yada, and an event notice. And, you know, I always cover all the bases. So anyway, I'm going to try to go live Friday for readings. Hopefully I'll feel up to it. We'll have to wait and see when it gets here, or closer to it anyway. But anyways, that's it. So thank you guys for coming. And for everybody out there who is listening, watching, or otherwise, please remember, guys, that the dues are due for the Soma Fusion Network's membership dues for the group. And, you know, again, it shouldn't still be the same 3 people paying it every single time. That's not fair. So throwing that out there, that'll be due. You know, I try to get it to Katie no later than the 3rd each month, so that she can cover the operating costs of that. Unless you don't want to do it anymore, but you guys got to decide that, because it's, you know, your choice. So anyway, I made the post about it in the group, but not everybody reads the post. So there you are. So anyway, thank you all for coming and for listening out there wherever you may be around the world. I appreciate it. You can find me on Facebook in the Willows Bend group. Is my group. I also have a chronic pain group that I run called Chronic Pain This Sucks. That's available for anybody who needs support in those areas. And I also have my page Beyond the Veil, where I can be found. The best way to reach me, if you have any questions, comments, whatever, concerns, on Messenger, just under Donna Gorton, easy to find. And so at any rate, thank you, everybody. I hope you have a blessed and wonderful rest of your Monday evening. And I will see you guys around Facebook land as always. Have a wonderful night, guys. Thank you.